I'm ready.
Okay, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled Sylvania Township Trustee meeting at 4 p.m. on March 5th.
Calling the roll, Trustee Haddad.
Here.
Trustee Mahoney.
Here.
Trustee Genowine.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the February 19th regular meeting minutes. Any changes or corrections?
No, they were motion approved as submitted.
Second.
Calling the roll, Mr. Haddad.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Genowine.
Yes. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening?
Nope.
Would like to move to the hearing of the public on agenda items. If any of the, well, okay. Al, and pardon my pronunciation, Alan Christie? If all of these are for the rezoning, we're going to open the public hearing up here as soon as we address this, and I think that's where your comments are probably more. Okay. Is there anyone here for anything other than the rezoning issue? Well, agenda items?
Well, yeah, John, on the fire station thing, could we wait until that comes
Yes.
on the agenda?
Yeah, let me mark that down. Okay. Well, at this time, I would like to open the public forum for the zone change at 3859 and 3901 McCord Road. And I'm going to go in order of, or I guess, should I turn it over to Darrell first? You want to make comments before we open up the public forum, or?
Sure.
Just want to kind of give some of the highlights here. The applicants are requesting a zone change from A3 agriculture to R4 PUD for the purpose of constructing an upscale 34-unit multifamily residential development. The site currently consists of two parcels, each with a single-family residence, and is bounded on the north by large lot residential and a church. Commercial uses are to the northeast, while single-family, mostly medium-density residential properties border the site to the east, south, and west. The proposed development would consist of two 5-unit and two 6-unit, one-story multifamily dwellings with private entrances, individual driveways, and 2-car garages for each unit. The fifth building, located in the approximate center of the site, would be 2 stories and contain 12 units. Again, these would have private entrances and individual driveways, but with single garages. The site would be accessed by one private drive ending in a T-type turnaround. Limited additional on-street parking would be available on the access drive. The applicants will place privacy fencing and a row of arborvitae behind the T-type turnaround as screening for the adjacent single-family residences. The landscape plan also presents a buffer of spruce and maple trees around the perimeter of the site, and the applicants have indicated that they plan to keep as many of the existing trees on the site as possible. These would also be located mostly around the periphery of the site. The applicants have stated they are willing to work with neighboring residents regarding landscaping and fencing. As noted in the Lucas County Plan Commission staff report, the Sylvania Township Land Use Plan 2007 update designates this area of the west side of McCord Road, south of Sylvania Avenue, and north of Sparrow Hill Road as neighborhood mixed use and for transitional uses. Multifamily construction is rebounding from the recent recession better than any other real estate construction, with apartment occupancy rates around 95% nationally. The trend towards renting is expected to continue for many years as the economy improves and as our society ages. Staff recommends approval of the zone change from A3 to R4 for these properties, as it is consistent with the objective of the most current land use plan for this area. The proposed development is of the quintessential transitional use, a medium-density multifamily residential development, forms the perfect buffer between the single-family uses to the south and west and the current and probable future commercial uses to the north and northeast.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, we would like to open the public forum up. Do I say the time or? Okay.
Excuse me. And the applicant is here as well.
We'll give him a chance
At the end, or?
let him go first?
I think typically they go first.
Okay. We haven't had much zoning changes here in the township since I've been a trustee, so.
Hi, Don Ulrich, 8057 English Garden in Maumee. I'm a partner in M&D Holdings along with Mike Hodgenacki. Together we're the developer, the builder, and the long-term owner of the proposed project. The development, as Doyle said, consists of 34 units and 5 buildings. The project was designed to have a very single-family feel. It's got private entrances, separate driveways, enclosed garages, and very low density, low impact 1- and 2-story buildings. 4 of the buildings are ranch 1-story, and the 5th building, located on the north side of the street away from the adjacent single family, is 2-story. Each unit will be around 1,100 square feet and rent for approximately $1,200 per month. We plan to extensively landscape the entire site and build a very impressive entrance with full sprinkler coverage and create a very upscale feel for the entire project. We feel the project will enhance the area and actually improve values. Your zoning department in their staff report, as you just heard, referred to the project as the quintessential transitional use, given the existing single family use to the south, the likely commercial use to the north, and the existing commercial use to the east with Waterford Bank. Multifamily residential units are quite commonly used as a buffer between single family and commercial. Very uncommon that it be done in such a low-key, low-density manner like we're proposing. The norm typically in multifamily is 3-story, similar to Chelsea Place on Holland Sylvania Road. If this parcel actually were attached to some more land and become part of a larger PUD with the church property, it would likely be proposed as 3-story. Like Daryl said, we have met with the neighbors. We've agreed to extensively landscape and fence and provide fencing to provide additional screening and privacy. We've agreed to literally meet with them the day of landscaping and locate trees wherever they want them. We can respect, their desire for the land to continue to be just open land, but given the location of the 2 parcels and the condition of the 2 homes that are quite deteriorated, not a very realistic expectation that this is going to stay open land for a long time. Latest traffic count from McCord Road from the county engineers was stated to be 15,150 vehicles per day in 2011. Using a 4-trip per day average times the 34 units, you come up with 136 trips per day. You divide that by 15,150 average trips per day, comes out to 0.008% in terms of an increase in traffic. Project's been supported by your township zoning staff, unanimously approved by the Plan Commission, the County Plan Commission, and unanimously approved by the Zoning Board. In closing, I'd just like to say that the project obviously makes good planning and zoning sense, or it wouldn't have been unanimously approved at each of those steps. You know, it'd be a good addition to the community, and we plan to be long-term owners, be responsible for maintenance, keeping it gorgeous, being there for anyone to call us with complaints. I can answer any questions you may have, or now or later.
Later, after the people speak, I
Okay,
think.
yep.
Thanks, Don. All right, at this time, we'll open the public forum. And Mr. Christie, you signed in first. If you'd come up and please, when you speak into the microphone, you'd state your name and your address and give us your concerns.
My name is Alan Christie, 3845 Pepperwood Court. I was to the last meeting, and our concerns that everybody I've talked to in my neighborhood and back into the other farm brook is the property values as far as effect on them. I mean, a lot of the people across the street from me, which are butting right up against this, have a lot of major concerns. I mean, I'm across the street from them, I'm 500 feet further away, and I have concerns. They're 17 feet away, that's a buffer. That's an awful short buffer. You know, and it was brought up in the council meeting, or the meeting we were in last, that we had to be ready for change, and some change is good, some is not. You know, I don't think anybody in the neighborhood, if there was a nice office complex that was fit in there, something a little safer, their concern is everybody starts to build these apartment complexes and they're going to own them, they get sold off. The next person comes in and buys, and he sees it's not quite the profit opportunity that he thought it was or they thought it was, and they either lower the rent, which lowers the people coming into your neighborhood, you know, the type of people around. It gets sold off again, and it just kind of goes downhill in a 10 to 15, 20-year slide, and then where's your neighborhood? I mean, it's a domino effect. It affects the people across the street from me. That's going to affect me. That's going to affect the people behind me. There's 800 houses in that area. That's a lot of families. Now, I understand it's a business, and somebody's trying to make money and develop. It was brought up in a meeting that he had 34 units, or was going to put 34 units in, and $1,200 a piece, that's $81,600 in a month, $979,000, $100,000 in a year. That's a lot of money and a lot of profit. At least it looks like opportunity. But they said they could function and get by and be profitable at 60%. That's $48,960 a month, $587,000 a year. That's why there's not going to be an office complex in there, because very simply they can't make that kind of revenue off an office complex. Or individual housing. They can't make that kind of money. The potential is there. But the problem is they're affecting people. They're affecting our property values. We're going to lose a lot more. I mean, Sylvan Lakes is already talking about HUD coming in there. Excuse me? That's a nice operation, very nice, very clean. What's it going to be in 10 years, 15 years? You know, they're having to rely on the government paying for some of their rent. They're not getting the individuals in there. This is all stuff that can go wrong. I mean, you have to look and play the devil's advocate. What can go wrong? They talked about step-down rezoning in the last meeting. Why? We aren't at the stage where we've rezoned yet. But they were already talking about Advent Church possibly being rezoned in a certain category, the buffer, a couple lots in between. another category, and then stepping down into the R4. Well, the decision you make now is going to affect all of that. And it may not be three-stage, maybe it'll be two-stage in the future. But the people that built here, and some of them that have just moved in the last 4 or 5 years, wouldn't have moved in there if they'd have had an apartment complex butted right up against it. They bought what they saw. Now, things can change, but again, that's where you people come in to protect us. You're here, basically, to protect the individual. And we have to rely on you doing the right thing. And the meeting, I heard when the builder met with other homeowners, I didn't know about it, I couldn't make it. They weren't quite thinking it went quite as good as he did. Well, it was more controlled by him than the homeowners. You know, a lot of people feel this has already been decided. You know, the time of the meeting today, unfortunately, doesn't fit a lot of people's schedule. I had to close my business down to be here. But I knew there were other people that, if they could have got here, would have got here. I mean, there's a lot of people in an uproar over this and do not feel comfortable. They're worried about, right now, just with the traffic on McCord, we get a lot of people cutting through from Sparrow Hill, up Hoxton, swinging on Barlington, trying to skip the light. They use it for a little road course. It's 20, 25 mile an hour speed limit, and they're coming through there at 35 and 40. Now increase that because people living over here. Again, very good possibility somebody coming to there doesn't want to hit the light. They're going to swing around, come out Sparrow Hill and hook around and go into the subdivision. You're going to have more people cutting through. You're going to have possibility of people wandering through our neighborhood, cutting through people's backyards because it's quicker. You know, there's just a lot more there that make people feel very uncomfortable. You know, and with apartments going in, I think an office complex would be a lot safer, a lot more accepted, but an apartment complex going in that's could get sold off, probably will get sold off down the road. In Sylvan Lakes, they aren't local. You know, my daughter lives in. You know, you want to get a hold, it isn't like you can walk up and talk to whoever owns the place. You know, there's a big difference there. You know, and pass the buck. It could end up a California company, a Florida company, a Georgia company, a New York company that buys it. Do you really think they know what's going on in the area and care? No, it's all in it for the money. Starlight Plaza is bought by a big company. They're 80% empty because they won't lower the rent and they can't get people to go in there. 80% empty. Those buildings are starting to look run down. That's not uncommon in a situation like this. Investors try to invest, but they're relying on somebody's, you know, word, somebody that they've hired to give them the proper information. Doesn't happen. You know, or if it does, it's not, to them, doesn't turn out profitable. If they have that kind of money, they can let it sit, and that's what's happening with Starlight Plaza.
Well, if we could, there's a lot of people here who want to speak tonight, so I would like to keep it to, you know, roughly 3 to 5 minutes. I don't want to cut anybody off, and I would like to keep it to this particular property and not speculation on other things. And I understand you've expressed your concern for it being sold off to an entity that's much harder to track down and get in touch with. I mean, I understand that concern, but again, kind of tying it in and speculating it on other properties, I would prefer we just keep it.
We bought into an area that wasn't zoned commercial. Everybody there. It wasn't zoned commercial. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave right after this because I have to get back and open my business up. But it wasn't zoned commercial. And now the chance for that and the chance for apartments and a chance of safety for other people, again, this is all stuff they can't control. They're going to rent it to somebody. They don't know what somebody's friends are going to be like. You don't know. And it's a lot different than individual homes. a lot different than family dwellings. You know, somebody that is actually renting. They aren't responsible. They can leave. They can make a mess of the place and leave. What are you going to go after, a security deposit? I mean, there's a lot of responsibility there, and people that have been paying in their houses for 20 years, 30 years. They're all to be affected by this, and that's a burden you guys have to carry. And I hope you make the right decision and protect the homeowners in the best way you feel.
I understand your concerns. I own apartments, so I've dealt with it myself, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Al.
Greg Alt, is it? 5749 Park Center?
Probably Greg Arnold.
Oh.
He's an attorney.
No wonder I can't read it.
However, I represent 20 homeowners, and I'd like to defer to give
The
you
last one.
a chance to
Yep.
to speak.
Boy, ATIDE Bollinger, 3916 Pepperwood Court.
Bollinger.
I guess I should have people print here.
It's Nicole Bollinger, sorry. I didn't know if I had to sign it or not. I was doing it rather quickly.
That's okay.
And just, and it's 3916 Pepperwood Court. And just as like a little side note, he said that last time that we had met that it was unanimous, and I don't really believe that was the case, just to point that out. We actually had one person motion to hold off, and no one would second. So, as a member of the Farmbrook community, I am sincerely concerned about the adverse impact that the proposed change would have on all our well-maintained residential neighborhood. The plan as submitted has buildings and a street placed entirely too close to the surrounding homes. The neighboring homes, if this plan is approved, would surely lose their sense of security, privacy, and value. During the Zoning Commission meeting on February 13th, I had asked the question, if this were in your backyard, would you approve? I really never received any type of answer on that one. They said that they had growth next to them, but none of them really answered the question, because the growth that was near them was single-family residential, which is not what we're looking at here. Quite different from 34 units and less than 4 acres. After speaking to many of my neighbors, the majority of us in Farmbrook feel that we have been overlooked by the current land use plan. The land that we border has been dubbed prime real estate without us being aware until now. I assume that someday it may develop, but never thought that Sylvania Township would view or allow high-density and/or commercial as compatible with single-family residential, especially in such close proximity. I thought surely there would be a buffer that would maintain our quiet, well-maintained neighborhood. I would also like to point out that housing affordability is at its most favorable level since the 70s, as Sylvania Township has seen. On the township website, it states, according to Darrell Grouse, that single-family houses end on a strong note. He pointed out that in 2012, they had 50 construction permits for single-family houses, which is the most they have seen since there were 89 in 2007. So we are beginning to head in the right direction as far as that goes. So it means the demand has already begun to shift from renting to buying, as it is cheaper to buy than rent right now. If this is approved as proposed, I fear that as the demand for rentals dip lower, so will the rental occupancy and the cost of rent, thus having an even larger negative effect on our bordering neighborhood. As our township trustees, you make many decisions that shape our community as a whole. I'm hoping you'll take the time to step back and consider how you would feel if you were in our situation as you make your decisions not only on the future of this piece of land, but the entire area that we border. When revising and or upholding the township land use plan, please take into consideration that the gains of the few should not outweigh the cost of many. As the purpose of the land use plan, as I understand it, is to guide future development in our community so that the growth is of a high quality, blends well with existing residential areas, and maintains our high standards of living. It is not meant to help property owners or developers realize the highest profit or to diminish the value of currently existing properties. I personally urge you to take into consideration the effect that your decisions have on our day-to-day life, including the safety of our children, which is a huge thing for me, as I really truly will not feel safe with my children playing in their own backyard with 34 families close enough to wander through to get to Olander. I ask that you keep in mind that zoning, as defined on the township website, is meant to minimize the impact and to protect and enhance the quality of life over time by ensuring that adjacent land uses are compatible with one another, or that steps are taken to mitigate any impacts which may be found to exist. So I just ask that you please hear our concerns with an open mind and know that we're only trying to uphold the integrity of the neighborhood that we choose to call home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Beth Appleton.
Beth Appleton, 3949 Pepperwood Court. As I emailed all three of you, and I appreciate your taking the time to read what I wrote, from my heart, we moved into this area for a reason. Zoning was there for a reason. Everything that everybody has said is so true. I'm concerned about the retention ponds that are going to be on McCord Road that are supposedly 5 feet off the road. When Lourdes College builds their sports arena at the end of Brent and McCord, the only way to get there is going to be McCord via Central. We have a terrible, terrible hang up there now, even though the road has been widened, and I understand that's not any of your concerns. It's just the fact of life. That is the growth. But our neighborhood, I can't see the property values going up because of this. There will be no control over people that live there. We have some rental properties also. We have no control who they rent it out to and what goes on within and who's going to move in because they can't afford the rent and they'll bring their friends in and the cut-throughs, and I won't reiterate anymore, but I really want you to put your all in this before you make your decision and realize that what you decide tonight is going to affect the rest of us for as long as we live in that neighborhood and when we go to try to sell our property if it need be. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kevin Winning?
That's me. I'm here as an observer for another portion of the meeting, which is the fire station. So.
Okay. Penny Levine?
Penny Levine, 3753 Her Road. I feel for these people because I've experienced this 17 years ago with property across the street that went M1 and M2. Just a few questions. Is that how that's going to set up architecturally? Those models right there. So in other words, cars, possibly 2 cars per garage, will have cars sitting in front of them if they choose not to park inside. Correct?
Mr. Ulrich?
Yeah, each unit has a 2-car garage. If they happen to have 4, which would be very rare, yes, they could park cars outside, just like the adjacent single-family neighborhoods that could park cars outside. Same thing.
Right. If anybody wants to see what happens on rental property, and it's not just in Sylvania, it's other places, go down Wolford and the development that runs parallel to the expressway. And Wolford looked nice when it went in. A few years later, needless to say, rental property, they tend to have more people come in, let it be boyfriend, daughters, boyfriends, you name it, kids come back, whatever, and then they've got 3 and 4 cars. So that unit becomes a parking lot. Another question, are there going to be any streetlights or curbing or sidewalks?
There's 5 streetlights laid out within the project. There are no sidewalks. The road itself will serve as a sidewalk essentially. Not going to have traffic to the point where a separate sidewalk would really be necessary.
Okay. So then they can also choose to park alongside the uncurbed street, correct?
Yes.
Okay. As far as egress and the ingress of that, is that just one way in and then there's a turnabout and then one way out, the same way you come in? Or is there a separate ingress and egress to the development?
That's one drive.
One driveway?
Yeah.
So for emergency vehicles, there's just the same way in as the same way out?
The turnaround is designed for emergency vehicles at the end of the street.
And so
They
if,
come in the same way they go out.
so if the large ladder truck comes in, that's the one to available?
Turnaround's plenty long to turn around the long ladder truck.
Because we had that with Watcher's property, remember, behind us. So then without the curbing, that kind of thing. So if there's two cars parked side by side, one on the other side of the road from the other, we already found out, like on Nantucket, that doesn't work if an emergency vehicle comes down the road. And all that's been cleared with fire chief? You've looked at that, fire chief, and the measurements are good? As far as going in and out?
Chief,
trying to get the vehicle around?
like to say anything?
Yes, I've had the deputy chief in charge of fire prevention run the numbers, and they meet the standard that we need.
Okay, all right. If you say so. So there is no attachment, then, is there any plans for the future of this property where it can attach to, what was that street behind it, Pepperwood? Or Sparrow, is it Sparrow Hill? Okay, I didn't know if there was a dead end from that neighborhood that could be attached.
Turn around over there, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. There's no retention pond on that site right now, on the drawing, or is there plans for retention pond as you come into the rental area?
There would be two detention ponds right in the front of the property by McCord Road.
Very front.
Right. That one.
Is that just for aesthetics or water?
If I can add, they're essentially detention ponds. The term pond is not exactly received correctly. Detention ponds are designed basically to hold water in a massive storm event. You may, if you get 2 inches of rain, you might get 6 to 8 inches of water from this detention pond. What we have planned there on the landscape plan is to completely line them with river rock and landscape them and make them a nice looking feature part of the entranceway. So don't picture water in ponds at the entranceway.
Right, so if need be, the water will come up, like a groundwater pond. It'll come up, and then when the water dissipates, it goes down.
It basically just holds the water such that it doesn't overload
Right,
storm.
the system. Okay, and your development company will be taking care of this from now till
Yes.
doomsday? Or whoever purchases it after? Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thanks.
Barbara Kennedy?
You can't even talk at church, so. I thought there was going to be a room with about 10 people in here. First of all, I've lived in Sylvania for almost, 25 years. And I've lived in condos and apartments. And after my husband died, I had a short sale on my house. It was just, it was huge. It was, I lost an income. And so I I have at home, if I knew that I was going to be talking, I would have brought that book with me. But I think I probably looked at something like 60 apartment complexes. This is not an apartment complex. It's luxurious apartments that I know it's not going to be specifically for older people, but I'm old. I mean, I'm 72, so I don't want to buy a house. It would be ridiculous for me at this point in my life to buy a house. And I did want to say that I've walked probably 1,000 miles in Sylvania. And I walk Olander Park. I won a T-shirt one time for 500 miles in 8 months. And I never cut through anybody's property, and I've always lived close enough that I could do it. There's police around all the time. In those fire trucks, my gosh, they're everywhere, those bright red fire trucks. And I'm partial to firemen. My husband was a fireman. So I know what the man that left, I thought he said like a condo association, and it's not. It's apartment complex or something, and he said people will sell, and their kids, will come in, and pretty soon things will get down. I don't believe that. First of all, Mike Hodgenicki doesn't make junk. And what those look like will be better than what they seem. And I've seen some of his properties. I lived in one of them. And I don't, I remember one night, an hour before a holiday, I had a problem. And I had like 25 people coming, and they were there to fix it. So I would kind of I would be very proud to say that I lived there, because they do look like condominiums, so maybe I could fake it, and that's not really. But it's going to be beautiful, and it gives me a chance at my age and this time of life to live in a brand new place that's like my own. And I can't believe when you pay that kind of rent that sometimes that scares people away. And there are rules. I have rules in my contract where I live now. I'm not allowed to bring another person into the house without having them to live with me, without having them checked. And, for instance, if I had a grandchild come to live with me so they could go to Sylvania schools, I would have to pay a deposit on them. And, it just isn't, it's not going to be the way some people think that it's going to be that live there. And I have lived in a house like that, and I've had, not had property, but I can understand how, some people might feel. But I don't foresee that. That looks like a place that I looked for. I had to go way out to Perrysburg to find anything that was even anything near anything that would be in Sylvania. And it was an upscale, luxurious apartment complex. And they were as nice as any condos that I've ever been in. So if anybody wants any question, you can probably see me limping around. I love the city of trees.
Thank you
and
very
I'm
much.
going to stay here. Thanks.
Thanks, Barb.
Did I go over 5 minutes?
Is there anyone who did not get a chance to sign in who wishes to speak? Sure, I mean, yes. Please, when you get up, since you didn't sign in, if you could please state your name and address.
Yeah, I'm Mark Johnson, 6909 Ramblehurst. Sorry I'm late for the meeting. I teach at Southview, and I would have expected a pass from my students if they came late. And while I'm a resident of Farmbrook, I'm here also because I'm an educator in Sylvania schools, and I'm going to be very brief in my points. I have 4 bullet points, and I wondered if these had been considered at all. First of all, the enrollment impact for Sylvania schools. I teach science at the high school. I have 24 students in most of my classes. We're bursting at the seams. Some of our English classrooms have in the mid-30s of students for one teacher. And so I'd like to think that we remain excellent with distinction, in part because of how our community leaders make decisions like this. To increase the number of rental properties by 34 units invites additional transient families. We have a lot of families that move into rental properties and are there for part of the year. And as a teacher, I can tell you that really disrupts the educational flow when we have students moving in partway through the year or moving out partway through the year. These are likely going to be families who may not necessarily be interested in supporting future levies that are floated for the schools, whether they be operating levies or capital improvement levies. And finally, I don't know if you've given any thought to how this will affect the property tax, not just the people that live along Pepperwood and they're concerned about devaluation of their property, but the property itself. What will the impact be on property taxes that are used to fund the school district? Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, my name's Douglas Gus, 3910 Pepperwood. I had just moved into Pepperwood August. Had I known that there was going to be an apartment building in my backyard, would I have moved there? Kaden and Kristen, stand up, please. We are arguing for adults on, do we want this in our backyard? These are kids. We're jeopardizing kids' safety, and all these kids play in these backyards. We're worried about property value. This is our most precious thing in Sylvania. This is what makes us distinct. But we're going to let some 34 single-family condos off of someone making some money over a few tax dollars that we can bring in. Tell that to these guys. This is the future. This is who's going to be taking care of us when we're older. This is what we want to tell them. We're all about a couple dollars. Tax revenue, it's a sad day in America if we come to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was late also. I signed in the wrong paper, so my name is Isaac Villa. My address is 3833 Eagle View Circle. Here with my wife, Susan. We live in one of those properties that kind of butts up in the Eagle View Circle. It's directly behind this property here. I'm sure Darryl will pull that up for you. Kind of just south to the word site there. There's that little hook is Eagle View Circle there. With the neighbors that I have there, I know at least one of them is here right now, but again, proximity time-wise, I left work early and tried to get here. I know some of my neighbors that kind of feel the same things that I'm going to say, we're unable to be here. My wife and I moved to the township over about 9-10 years ago, and I love this area. I work in the township. I live here. I'm super involved with school systems and in my profession. I work as a physical therapist. And December, early December, my wife and I got an early Christmas present, which was a letter that stated this was going in. And kind of looking back at it, we've kind of seen that there was a lot of planning that was already happening, the 78 down to the 60 to the 50 to the 34. And as residents, we weren't told about this. We kind of got this dropped in our laps in December. So at no point was it, hey, we're thinking of doing this, just so you guys know, and maybe we can talk about it, maybe we can have a plan. The meeting took place well after, with those of us that were neighbors, to say, this is what we're doing, so get ready, it's coming. And today I'd like to state too, it's taken 3 meetings and a neighborhood meeting to finally have somebody that has spoken, other than the developer, have somebody that's spoken in favor of this. I can't say that I've run into anybody else that has had favor to this idea. Where I'm located, one of my biggest concerns that I know hasn't been spoken to specifically, but it kind of hinted at, is the cut-through idea. When it comes to parking, I've lived in apartments, I did that college thing. I had enough friends around that if you had a couple of friends over, somebody needed to park somewhere. And that street's not going to afford a lot of parking, but my circle in front of where I live, along with what goes over onto Sparrow Hill and Pepperwood, has a whole lot of room. And when you can park in front of my house, and it's going to take you 40 feet to get to the back of my property, another 40 feet to get to the first apartment building there, that's a great place to park. And my concern isn't necessarily that, there's going to be people around when my kids are playing. My kids are playing in the yard. I'm always concerned if there's going to be people around, if there's development there or not. My concern is the increased traffic flow of individuals coming through my property that shouldn't be there. And when my street gets used as a parking lot, I'm going to have concerns with that. And I don't know who to talk to. If I have concerns with something my neighbor's doing, I'm going to go talk to them. And I know it's been mentioned, and it's all speculation if this gets sold off, but if it does, what happens then? Who do I communicate with? And I know traffic flow was stated earlier as like some tiny percentile, I think 0.0008, I believe, which seems so trivial. But when you add something to something that already seems bad, it doesn't matter how trivial it is, it's too much. It already seems bad. And we can sit up here and talk about the minutes I spend trying to pull out and the detail with that, but it's already too much. More is not good. And kids walk through there. People walk through there going to Oland or coming home from Southview, coming home from McCord, coming from any of those schools. When you increase traffic flow, you increase risk, you increase issues with that. Like I said, ultimately, I love this township, and I communicated this in emails to each of the 3 of you, that I love the feeling of being in a township neighborhood. I grew up in the city of Toledo. I moved here because of the education. I moved here because of the single-family neighborhoods and the opportunities I had to develop relationships with people around me. Ironically, I've developed deeper relationships with people around me because of this. So I'm not interested in seeing transient individuals that I can't develop relationships with, that I can't hold accountable to what we're doing. That's really one of my biggest concerns, and I hope as you guys are considering what goes in here and what the future of this property looks like, from Sylvania right on down to my backyard, that you're keeping in mind that, and really looking at what does the township need, what does the township best have to grow in the future. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Vince Manera, 5684 Mayberry Square, apartment number 6 currently. I'm here to speak on 2 points. The first point being I've lived for 25 years in the Sylvania Township. I've owned a number of homes. I've lived in a condominium, and I currently live in an apartment. As we've progressed in age, my wife and my wife has developed some arthritic issues. We certainly have little choice on looking for a single-story apartment to accommodate not having steps involved. Currently, the apartment we live in is on the 2nd floor, and there are steps involved. So people in our age group and people that are coming into that age group from the, quote, baby boomer age, I believe there's some relevancy for this type of development. Is this the right location? I don't live where they live. I don't know if this is the right location. But for the use and the type of apartments that are being built, I think that the future speaks that there will be a number of people in my and my wife's situation that would require this type of development. Again, I'm sure that the aesthetics, the architecture and so forth, I'm familiar with Mike Hodgenicki and the buildings that he does do, but I think that the use and the rental situation is such that only a certain segment of the population is going to be able to afford. Are there possibilities of all these things that have been brought up to occur? Sure, there are possibilities of all of that. The second thing I want to make aware of, and I understand the gentleman with the children who had the concern for safety, my job is with the Toledo Police Department. I'm very well aware of the chief here and his capabilities and the capabilities of the Sylvania Township Police Department. We work integrally quite a bit. And I would say that any of those concerns, if in fact they become a reality, certainly would be addressed in a comparable manner and certainly would not, in my opinion, have any issues from a safety standpoint. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vince. Thank you. Anyone else before Mr. Arnold would speak on behalf of the residents as well?
Come on up.
Oh, we got somebody here. Please state your name and address.
Leslie DeMarco, 3750 Wild Pheasant Lane. I live in Farmbrook. And I didn't know if the trustees take into consideration prior proceedings for similar type developments. Another block to the south on McCord, there's another 2 residential lots that sit there. A number of years ago, they tried to put in a similar type of development, a multi-unit condominium type complex. And at that time, the zoning commission as well as the trustees considered this property and ended up turning it down because of the concerns of the residents and the community as well. So I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the trustees of previous proceedings. I'm in agreement with the other residents considering the property value of my home. I enjoy living here. I've been here for 17 years. And the reason I moved here was because of the type of developments, the single-family lots and things that the city or the township has. I'm not interested in living in a multi-unit type of development area. I guess we'd be moving to Michigan then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Benny.
Just a real quick question, I forgot the first time. Has there been any application for HUD money or any that is being used for this project?
No, none whatsoever.
No intention?
No intention, never will.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Arnold?
If I might?
Please.
Sure, Greg. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Arnold. I represent 20 neighbors to this project, neighbors to the south, the west, and actually some across McCord Road to the east. I appreciate your time and consideration this afternoon of this project. And what I'd like to first discuss is the staff recommendations and of not only Toledo-Lucas County Plan Commission, but also the recommendations of the zoning board. If I could have up there kind of a Google overhead. There we go, thanks. This has been described as the quintessential transitional use. As you can see, the project is in this rectangle. There's an area here in the middle, and then the corner on McCord and Sylvania. Actually, if you look at this, this is all single-family residential here, and so this parcel here may be considered a transitional use, but the one in the middle is actually the transitional use to the commercial that may at some point in the future, and most likely will, be developed on the corner. When the zoning commission met, I described this as a prime piece of open property in Sylvania Township, and that because of the size, because of the location, it deserved some really thoughtful planning as to how this whole parcel could be envisioned as laid out appropriately. I will say that the 20 people that I represent are not advocating that this remain an open field. That has never been their issue. Their issue is that the application for an R4 PUD permitting 34 units is too dense of a development for this site. Now, I could just say that without being able to support it, but if we could have the plan map, I can tell you why this is. Here we go. These detention ponds are located within 5 feet of the right-of-way of McCord Road. McCord Road, where it presently is 1 lane to the south, 1 lane to the north, and a turn lane in between. As it's presently developed, that intersection at McCord and Sylvania is subject to backups daily. If the corner develops into commercial, and it likely will, and the middle part develop, that's going to create more traffic, and it's just not realistic to think that McCord Road will not have to be widened at least another lane. If that happens, and these detention ponds, whether they have water in them temporarily or whether they're dry, these detention ponds will not provide any room to widen McCord Road. So what do? If you widen McCord Road into the detention ponds, then you're creating the potential for a flooding situation. The other area, back here where the T is located, this T is, I want to be correct, 13 feet from the end of the road to the property line. There's only 13 feet before the neighbor's backyard. That's another issue of density. But the most important issue of density, and by the way, the neighbors that I represent are advocating an R3 PUD, which would permit 28 units. I would suggest that if I am referring to the latest plan as the one we have up here, this proposed development on its face violates the existing zoning requirements of Sylvania Township. Why do I say that? McCord Road is considered as a major roadway. Your zoning code, and I would direct you to the very last page of the materials that I gave you, McCord Road is considered as a major roadway. The regulations say that there shall be no improvement within 100 feet of the center line of a major roadway. If you measure 100 feet off of the roadway, this building down here would be cut in two by that 100-foot setback. So this plan as proposed is violating your own zoning code, and to approve this, you would have to, on its face, say that you're willing to violate the Sylvania Township zoning code. Now, if I'm wrong on these measurements, I'm welcome to have the developer indicate otherwise. But if you measure on the center line, on the building to the north here, it is right on the face of that building. But the building on the south side of the proposed drive is cut right in half. And so I don't really see how there's any way the trustees can approve this plan as proposed by the developers. So this is not an issue of, is this appropriate, should there be apartments, should there not be? It's too dense. Another issue, and one of the people brought it up in here, in the materials that I've given you on page 18, there's a letter from the Sylvania Township Fire Department. In that letter, Deputy Chief Mike Froelich said that the fire department strongly recommends that this development and all new developments have sprinkler systems. Are they required? No, they're not. But I asked the chief, deputy chief, what words beyond strongly recommend would you use if you wanted to emphasize your point more strongly? He said there are no stronger words. Strongly recommends is the strongest category of words. Why is the fire department concerned about sprinkler systems in residential units? They're concerned because if a fire starts, it spreads quickly. It can spread quickly in an apartment complex. When you have a property development that is too dense, which we submit is, with this being an R4 rather than an R3, the risk of loss, the risk to life is that much more expanded. And with 34 units crunched in to this plot, when you've only got 5 feet on the detention ponds, 13 feet at the back, and more importantly, a violation of the 100-foot setback line on the major roadway of McCord Road, this is just an inappropriate development for this site. And so the 20 neighbors that I represent would strongly urge you, just as the fire department strongly recommends, that you do not approve this site as it's presently proposed by the developers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Chief, can I ask you a question? Sure. Is there you're not supporting, is this?
No, that's not what Mike said. Mike, every case that we have a PUD or an apartment complex, we strongly recommend, even in a residential area, that everyone puts in a sprinkler system, because that's the most appropriate and best way to save lives. So any PUD or any apartment complex or residential subdivision that comes through for our plan review, we do recommend that they put in residential sprinklers.
Thank you.
Anybody else wants to speak?
Anyone else wishes to speak for or against this project?
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Parker. I represent the developers. I was not intending to speak, but since the other side had a lawyer to talk, so it's an opportunity for another lawyer to say something. Some of you probably know that I've been involved with rezoning a lot of property in Sylvania Township over 38 years. And Mr. Arnold contends that this project is too dense. The fact of the matter is, if you read the staff reports, this project complies with every one of your regulations in terms of density, coverage of buildings, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in the staff report as analyzed by the zoning administrator. The truth of the matter is that you worked long and hard, and I did as well, on a master plan. And the master plan contemplated this kind of development, this kind of transitional use. The master plan is something that my clients are entitled to rely on, just like these individuals who are neighbors are entitled to rely on it when we propose something that conflicts with it. This project, this particular use, does not conflict with your master plan. It's in conformance with it, as has been agreed now by two bodies, one of which is the Lucas County Planning Commission and your own zoning commission, who are the individual arbitrators of that. With respect to the setback issue off of McCord, this is a PUD. PUD has flexibilities. And because of that, and Mr. Ulrich can address it as well, in a PUD you do get some flexibilities from the strict requirements of setbacks because of the overall design of the project. So I submit to you, and Mr. Ulrich will talk specifically about it, that this particular development meets all of your requirements. It does not ask for any variances, and the staff reports indicate that. And as been indicated, you know, I'm 65 years old and I rent a condominium, sold my house. I mean, the truth of the matter is, a lot of people who rent these don't have to rent them, they choose to rent them. And these are wonderfully designed units that will provide a alternative housing to a number of people that want to stay in Sylvania Township. And the truth of the matter, every project generates traffic. The people in Farmbrook I was involved in that, don't want to believe it, but they generated traffic when they put Farmbrook in. So, in any event, I'll let Mr. Ulrich talk about the setback. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Just a couple points. With respect to the setback, like Jerry mentioned, the underlying R4 zoning would require a 100-foot setback. Within a PUD, you are allowed flexibility, and Daryl and John Nagy reviewed that quite well, believe me. Just a couple points. Both Mike and I, this is not our first multifamily project. We're not hoping that maybe this will be a good investment. Combined, we probably own about 400 units in Toledo. We've owned them for a long time. We know what's going to happen with this project. We know that it'll be successful. We do background checks on all of our residents. We know more about them than they want us to know by the time they sign a one-year lease, and it is a one-year lease. Safety, at $1,200 a month, that's probably double most of the adjacent mortgages. Not to say that high income means safety, but, you know, I don't follow the issue of safety being a concern. I would be as concerned about my next door neighbor. As far as parking on an adjacent street, we're putting a fence around the property. Cutting through a yard, jumping a fence to get to a unit, I can't see it happening. Can't see that happening. And then the project that was stated to be disapproved down McCord Road, we discussed that at the last zoning meeting, and your chairperson actually looked it up and found out that the project was approved, but it was during the recession and never built. So that project was approved and was much more dense than this. Mr. Arnold refers to it as being way too dense. The fact that the ranch units, which seems to be the mode that people are liking these days, basically expands the footprint. Density is actually very low. Project I have in Maumee on 2.1 acres, we've got 78 units. This is twice that much land, you know, third as many units. And as far as McCord Road being widened, it was just improved probably a year and a half ago. Greg Early said it best at the Plan Commission meeting that it's designed way over and above anything of this nature. I can answer any questions you might have now if you have any.
Well, at this time, I would like to close the public. Mr. Arnold?
Could I make one remark in response to the comments about the flexibility of the PUD?
Sure.
I anticipated that comment coming up. I would direct you again to the very last page of the materials I provided to you, because at the top it does show the violation, but more importantly I copied two sections of the zoning code, section 2222 and section 2002. And it does indeed say that lot size, lot width, or setback requirements may be waived except for front setbacks on major roadways. And then at the top of 2222, it says the construction, reconstruction, or enlargement of any structure shall not be permitted. So there is flexibility on side yards and rear yard setbacks, but there is no flexibility even in a PUD for front yard setbacks on major roadways, and that is a violation.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, I would like to...
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
If I may.
Can you close the hearing first?
Let me close the hearing.
Sure.
I'd like to close the public hearing, and then, Daryl, go ahead.
Just want to respond to a few points here. I'm not sure what issue of the PUD that Mr. Arnold's looking at. The most current one, 2002A, says that lot size, lot width, and setback requirements may be modified based upon substantiated existing conditions of the parcel. Any deviation from the underlying zone district criteria must be specifically approved by the Board of Township Trustees. And that's all it says regarding that. Nothing about major roads. Somebody had brought up the point about the zoning commission not being a unanimous vote. The vote was unanimous, 5-0. There was one member that wanted to continue it to the next meeting, but nobody seconded his motion, so they went ahead and voted on it, and the vote was 5-0. Regarding parking, actually, the zoning resolution only requires 68 spaces for this development, 2 per unit. As the plan is now, there's 112 provided, and that's just counting the driveway and garages. That doesn't count any on-street parking, which would be another probably 15 to 20. So they're actually got about double the required parking. And lastly, everybody brings up property values. I left all of you some things in your mailbox regarding some research I did on that. There's been quite a few studies on that, and virtually nothing shows that property values are negatively impacted by multifamily dwellings. If anything, there's actually an increase in property values in some cases. And that's all I've got.
Okay. I would like to address some of the points as well. One of the speakers brought up that the process, the process is pretty well laid out and very clear. There were discussions, and I'm sure the developer, as long as he's owned the property, has had probably designs or what he planned on doing with it. But once the formal proposal, that process was started, I believe, it went along and went as timely. It wasn't, tried to spring it on people, or we didn't reduce the time frame that was needed. I did want to ask the developer, how many bedroom units are these, or how many bedrooms are these?
All 2-bedroom units.
2-bedroom. Okay. Other trustees, do you have any comments or questions for the developers or for Darrell?
Yeah, I do. My biggest concern is the 5-foot setback off of McCord for the retaining ponds. You get a slippery road like we're going to probably end up with tonight. Somebody's going to slide off, fall into one of those ponds, and we're going to have a lawsuit because somebody fell in there and died, and we're going to have the police department as well as the fire department. I think it's way too close to the road. As the detention ponds is my concern for the road portion. Plus, I know we're at a 3-lane expansion there. If we're going to keep that much development going on in that area, I'd like to see a 4-lane road coming down McCord. But I talked to the engineer, and he says they're not planning on any more changes at this point in time. That's all I have to comment on.
Okay. Mr. Mahoney, do you have anything?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, personally, and you guys, whatever I say, you're probably going to think that I'm, thinking I like this project, but can we go back to this page here? Yeah. Alan, I think his name was Alan. Alan talked about, the whole singer. Alan talked about being an R4. And I'm not sure you guys all know what PUDs are and what zoning is. And I'm not a zoning guy, but I've read up enough of this with Darrell the last month and a half because I knew this was coming, that I would be enough to be dangerous. But R4, if you allowed, if a developer came in, and a developer that might come in a lot of properties throughout the townships throughout Northwest Ohio would come in. And again, it's all hypothetical because we don't know, okay? But just hypothetical, all right? We're going to look at something up here that's probably commercial, okay? Again, we're looking at a transition side here, and this is just Neil talking, so I'm open for comments here. You're going to see up here is a commercial. You're probably going to see here that Alan's talking about an office building. Okay, you probably got an Arby's possibly up here. So this isn't the first time we're all going to be together here. You're probably going to see an Arby's here. I'm just talking here. You're probably going to see an office building here. Okay? And what you're probably going to see down here, and this is just me guessing, is probably not a PUD but an R4. An R4 allows for 56 units, 10-foot buffer against the property line. I mean, that's awful tight. The only reason I look at this project and we're done with this. We're done with going down here. We're done going down here. We put a nice 34 1200 unit here, right here, I'm sorry. You're going to have some stuff up here, but this chokes it off. It's over. We're not going to have a little outlot here where people are going to cut back through your neighborhood. I live off Nantucket. I know exactly what you guys are dealing with. And I've got the same problem. But you know what? It's not, we start going down this road, and a big developer comes in, a different trustees, not me, we don't get elected, somebody that comes in that is really not concerned about what is going on in our township, they're going to, someday this could be slammed in, it's going to look like crud. This at least chokes the thing off and we're done. That's the only reason I think it's not a bad project.
Thank you. Mr. Ulrich, I do have a couple questions on the west side of the property. You know, one of the, I did receive, and I know a lot of the same people spoke here this evening, but I did receive 8 emails, and I didn't respond to any of them because I have been taking this into a lot of thought and trying to figure out which way this was going to go. There were a lot of positives and negatives, but one of the things that one of the emails brought up that really concerned me was that there was only 17 feet at the back of the property from the road to the neighboring backyards. And I noticed that the green space to the south on that property, like I was just wondering if there was a way that we could shift some of the buildings or something that would kind of give a little bit more of a buffer there to the residents behind there. And I mean, the only thing to the south I see is a barn. And I mean, he's going to have the best green space and things. Pardon?
It's a resident.
On the ford, and then the barn is behind your house.
Right.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming this is the green space here that he's proposing. So, I mean, and again, I know the object is to maximize the person's view and things, but I mean, I'm trying to look out for the residents that kind of abut the property and just...
What I'm seeing here, John, is, okay, to the west, the 2 buildings on the end, one is 52 foot from the property line, the other is 38 foot from the property line. Then on the south, that building is 35 foot from the property line. I'm not sure what you're looking at.
The turnaround, I guess.
The T.
The T.
The T.
It's a street, it's a turnaround.
Yeah.
It's a structure.
Well, that's, I mean, that is my, you know, I think there are legitimate concerns that will probably be utilized for parking or something.
We'll have to put no parking signs because these guys are going to be very upset if there's people parking there.
Yeah.
And that's where we've shown on the landscape plan a full row of arborvitae and a privacy fence such that the properties to the west can't possibly see through and see that turnaround. And in response to Mr. Haddad's concern, the detention basin, once again, it's not a pond somebody can drive a car into and drown, is actually being shown that it's 5 feet from the projected right-of-way that we had to give up. Essentially, from what will be the edge of the asphalt to the start of the slope is 25 feet.
Still concerns me that it's close to the road, that's all. I usually like them in the rear of the property so they're not going to be exposed area where somebody can get problems at and changing the slope of the property, that's all.
Well, with the project being this small, too, it's
I understand.
not going to be very deep. I mean,
No.
if a car drove in, and it's probably not going to hurt anybody.
And I mean, we've got structures and telephone poles and things that are
Yeah.
much closer.
More dangerous, yes.
Yes. You know...
Nicole's got a question.
Yes.
I have a question, actually. The woman had mentioned that her grandchildren want to go to Sylvania schools, and I had brought up at the last meeting, I'm not sure if the gentleman had a chance to listen to what we spoke about. My concern too is about busing, because I know buses can't back up, and they wouldn't be allowed down the private road. If they were to have to stand out there, those children would be standing right by right on the board where that was potential question. So that was a concern that I did not mention.
Thanks.
Good thought.
The other thing I would like is Daryl, Mr. Arnold's point about not allowing the variance and the setbacks on a PUD. I mean, where do you, you're comfortable with this, I guess?
Yes, yeah, with the current PUD resolution we have, it doesn't specify anything about the
Major
major
road or?
roads.
Well, I'm not a planning person here either, so the professionals that our taxpayers pay, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing down to the county, with regards to land use and what's proper zoning. The planning, the staff report approved it, the planning commission unanimously approved it, and our zoning department approved it unanimously. I don't know. I'm not a professional. I just try to do the best I can here to represent you people, us township taxpayers. It's a tough one, but.
Yes.
This is democracy. Is there any way that, come November, that it could be voted on by the township people?
I don't believe so, no.
Not that, no.
No.
Sorry.
It's a good question.
Well, do we want to,
I personally like to see it in R3 as was stated earlier, but that's about it.
in an R3,
Would be less dense.
that would take it down to 28 units?
Yes, sir.
Compared to the proposed
34.
34, yeah, sorry.
All right.
What's the percentage of open space that we have on this PUD? And what's the percentage of open space if somebody came back with a different zoning, like straight R3 or R4? So what I'm saying there is PUD allows for some flexibility with open space. If this comes to a straight zone of an R3, R4 is 56 units, 40 feet height with garages. R3, 42 units with garages. Here, we're choking off, controlling something that, what I want in my backyard, I'm not sure, but I'm trying to do what's best for everybody, what's best for you in the long run. There's a lot of bad things that could really, you guys be really mad at us for. And I'm just trying to choke off an end of development on this road, and this, you're going to see it up to the front. You guys, we're all going to be back here again for the north side, but this is this chokes it off. So Daryl, what is the open space for this PUD?
The required amount is 15. Right now, he's at 21.9%.
Okay. You have 17 feet on the back strip. What if it was just straight R3 or R4? It's 10 foot against the property line.
10 feet for the side property line and 30 from the rear.
Okay.
And that's for R4 or R3.
Yeah, they're both
Okay.
the same.
They're not the same. The PUDs are actually
No, they're
more.
about the same distance, I'm saying.
Okay.
Do we want to,
I'm ready to make a motion.
okay.
Got all this paperwork here. It's a tough one, you guys. Anyways, I'm going to make a motion, Resolution 12-029, to approve a zone change from A3 agricultural to R4 residential.
PUD.
PUD, sorry. By the way, PUD. PUD, we're going to be all over this, you guys, if this does pass. There's no games being played here. We want this thing done right. Second.
Any further discussion? Calling the roll. Mr. Haddad?
No.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Chenowine?
Yes.
See you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Very welcome.
Move on to Public Works. Well, let's get going, move on to Public Works.
Let's hold on till we let people.
What's that?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the Public Works Department. We'll start out with Greg's monthly report, and then we have a resolution.
Good evening. Monthly report for February 2013 has been submitted for your review. We are taking advantage of some training at the Safety Council in Northwest Ohio. A good class there for the 10-hour OSHA course. Drainage improvements and some storm sewer work with the frost and thaw cycles that we experienced in February. We had some issues over on Sedalia Drive, just south of Rudgate. Currently cleaning out the ditch areas on Comstock, Smith, Palmer ditches. This area is between Sylvan Prairie by Timberstone Junior High School. It's between Sylvan Prairie and the quarry. Some open ditch areas in there. Other items in here, some activities at the cemetery and such. The exterior lighting project is complete. A lot of compliments on that. Salt brine, snow and ice control efforts continue, and we are enjoying a great February. We still have 600 ton of salt at the salt docks that will mandate our purchase sooner or later. Pending your questions, move on to the next
I
item.
have a question. 505.101 of the Ohio Revised Code. Does anybody know what that states up here on the board?
I do not, no.
Okay. I was at Richfield Township meeting. They had approved an authorization and a resolution that we allow Al to go work on their fire trucks, which he did and repaired. This board has to approve under 505.101 that we have to give authorization and a resolution to allow him to be used in shared services within a community. That was not done by this board, and Mr. Mahoney had authorized that of his own accord, which is illegal for authorization to use a repairman somewhere else unless it was done under this jurisdiction of the board.
I
John,
think
can
I'll-
you help me here?
Yeah, real
Nothing to
quick.
help, that's the facts and that's the
John,
law.
I'd like to hear from our administrator on
You
this.
can hear from the administrator, it's the law.
The actual work was done at our facility.
Still, it's a law.
Al is on our payroll. Greg used his force account to cover the emergency repair of one of their fire engines in our facility. Al never worked for Richfield Township. He stayed on our payroll. We could charge them the force account, which includes overhead, and the part for this emergency fix of their fire engine. It came to $420. We feel, since Al stayed in our facility and did not go out to Richfield Township, that
Did you listen to what I said about the law?
you said Al went out to Richfield
I
Township.
don't care if you went there or here. We have to pass a resolution for shared services.
We don't-
Mr. Zeitler, you work for this
Mr.
board
Zeitler,
and
please.
you're an
Did you-
administrator.
Have you spoken to to John Burrell
No, I have not.
regarding this matter?
It's under the law. Let me
But
bring
we
the
are
law.
not-
Looks like it- well, Kevin,
We are-
being a,
Excuse me, one second.
We need to pass a resolution to allow
We're
this to
not
happen.
considering this a shared services. This
It
is
was a shared service.
No, a shared service is where you have an agreement to
No,
work.
he worked on their trucks.
Okay, well, I will
Without authorization of this board.
research that.
There's nothing to research.
Now you're interrupting, now you're interrupting John. Please, let
John
him speak.
works for us. He's
No,
an
we work-
administrator. He's supposed to do our will of this board, Mr. Mahoney.
Please,
When you
let's
understand
keep
that,
this
no.
civil, and
I know, that's what I'm
Mr.
saying.
Haddad, you've expressed your concern,
Well,
and what we're gonna do is have our attorney take a look at this
Good.
and see if we have violated the law, or see if we were within bounds to do this.
okay.
And I also like to say, if there is a section of law, it's not necessarily you're in violation of the law. I mean, there's, auditor could do a finding that you shouldn't have done that, we could correct it by maybe doing a resolution on that. So I will research it with John Burrell. But at this point, why I authorize it is I do not consider it a shared service agreement with Richfield Township. It was a one-time emergency repair done at our facility.
They passed that as a shared service.
Well,
And we have a shared service with them, with our fire department, correct?
That's fire department, not road department. We need to pay
Well,
them
so there's reason and merit that why we would like them to have a...
I don't mind them having it. I just think it should have been after regulation by this board. That's all I'm saying.
I understand your concern. Thank you.
A mutual aid agreement with Richfield Township.
But that's for the fire service. We need to pass it for using our repair.
I will research it and get back to you at the next meeting.
And John, I consider us working together, by the way, you and I, and us. We work together, we as a team, all of our staff, we.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on.
One more thing, Greg, did you do your resolution yet?
No. Resolution to pass the road resurfacing project.
Well, before he does the resolution, let me interrupt one thing that currently, I don't want to say through my direction, but I've been in contact with Greg. He's currently in discussion with the Stormwater Action Group, SWAG, as the term is, to finalize an agreement for the township to remove log jams from 10 Mile Creek, and we will be 100% reimbursed by the stormwater utility for that removal.
Nice.
So that's how we get some of our money back here.
Good work, Rick.
Right.
Okay, Greg, your resolution.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, resolution number 13030. This is to award and enter into a contract for the 2013 resurfacing project. Gherkin Paving was the lowest bid, about 5% less than the county engineer's estimate. Very happy with the results, and I recommend moving forward.
I'll offer resolution 13-030 to enter into the contract with Gherkin for a road resurfacing project for 2013.
Second.
Calling the roll, trustee Haddad?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Genowine?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Good job, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job working the computer, too. Brings us to our fire department.
Chief, you have a resolution in front of you?
Good evening. Last week, a committee of 3 individuals, myself, Deputy Chief Freilich, and Ms. Susan Wood, interviewed 3 candidates for the position of Deputy Chief. Very qualified individuals. I'm asking you for a resolution to approve that I'm asking you to approve resolution so I can go ahead and recommend one of them to the Deputy Chief position.
I would like to offer Resolution 13-033, authorize fire chief to promote deputy fire chief position.
Second.
Calling the roll, trustee Haddad?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Genowine?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item up is Police Department. Do you have anything? Next item is under the Administrator.
At this time, we did have 2 people sign in who wanted to speak on the fire station issue, so I would like to turn that over to Carol Lindhuber, if that would be all right.
Sure.
Carol Lindhuber, 5300 Brandy Lane. Could you, my only interest was, I know that some of the bids, I think even the lowest bid perhaps came in over. Can you just go through and explain that? That's the only thing is, clarify how the bids
John, can you help us there?
I believe.
Whether you're satisfied with them, if you
Zeitler.
got to cut anything out, that kind of stuff.
Well, actually, I'll address you first, and then I have a couple of things. The newspaper article we put in February 2nd or 1st, what it was, got an estimate of $1.9 million for the construction. The bids that we'll be talking, the bid we'll be talking about in a few minutes was $1.965 million, which is only $65,000 over our estimate. We're very happy with that. I mean, as a percent over our estimate, if you can get within 5-10% of your estimate, you're in good shape. And we feel that that number, working with the contractor when that's approved and the architect that we're close enough to our number that we can well withstand a 1.965 bid. So,
Does that cover everything? I mean, does it
No.
cover the work on the wall and?
yes.
Doesn't cover the cost of the fill or any of that stuff that's additional. It doesn't cover the cost of the architecture or
The architect's
engineering.
already, the contractor's already.
I'm just telling you.
I know, but she said the one.
I'm talking, why do you interrupt me?
Let's
Thank
please
you.
keep this meeting civil.
I'm trying to. I said, does it include some of the other costs too, which is going to be additional? And there's no contingency cost in there if there's any overages. Just so you know. Go ahead, because I read the bid.
But we did have money set aside for land acquisition, which we will not be, needing.
So you can use that for
Yes,
those things?
yes.
And you don't see the need to cut anything out of the plans? I mean, it's still 3 bays and...
Correct. I have, at this point, I'd like to pass out to the trustees the report I did, I wrote over the weekend, because I've gotten numerous emails, calls, people,
I read it. I approve it.
people stopping me, talking to me about the fire station, the budget, the cost, the location. And so what I want to do right now is just read the statement about the history of the levee, the history of the fire station, the other 2 fire stations. I hope the print is big enough for me to read. On March 4th, 2008, the voters of Sylvania Township passed a fire operating levy of 1.25 mils. And in the handouts I passed out, see attachment 1, because that's the actual ballot language. Nowhere in the ballot language does it talk about a bond issue. This levy should not be confused with a bond issue. Bond levies are dedicated only for bond interest and principal payments. Brochures that were printed and passed out explaining the need for the levy talked about replacement or modifying fire stations, purchasing equipment, and bringing staff up to needed levels. And that's attachment number 2. And those brochures were passed out before the election as a way to tell the people what the levy was actually for. Once again, no bond issue was mentioned. After the levy was passed, the administration/trustees at that time worked on ways to finance the improvements and equipment that was promised if the levy passed. The administration/trustees first issued a 1-year note at $7.9 million. A portion of this was used to prepay for the fire trucks and remodel station number 4. After 1 year, the administration decided on an $8.5 million 20-year bond issue. Originally, it was discussed at $8 million, but Jim Beck, our fiscal director, rightfully encouraged raising it to $8.5 million. This number was arrived at after discussions on what the estimate would be to construct 3 fire stations based on 2009 figures. Remember, this was at the end of 2009, start of 2010. Construction was just starting on fire station number 3. In my opinion, this was not the best way to finance the construction of the fire stations. In working on the financing of the convention center, Fifth Third Field, and Huntington Center, and other numerous county projects, I have found that it is better to issue 1-year notes at interest rates that are generally 1/2 or less than bond rates. After the projects are completed, or mostly completed, and you have a firm figure on the construction costs, you then go out to bond the entire issue. Issuing a bond at the start of 2010 without firm construction numbers for the other 2 fire stations and work just starting on fire station number 3, in hindsight, was not the best way to go. Talking about the budget, it seems that the balance left in the bond issue is being used as the budget. Remember that the levy was passed in 2008 did not mention a bond issue. One of the purposes of the levy, as stated before, was to replace 3 fire stations. The bond issue was decided in 2009, early 2010, by the administration. The real budget should be what it would be to cost to build a fire station that covers the basic needs of the community in 2013 and for years to come. Many times in my career, I have seen where a building was built, and for example, a $10,000 cut was made to make budget, and 3 years later, everybody realized that it was a mistake to save a few dollars, only to have a major impact on the quality or functionality of the facility. I will work with our team, our architect, our fire chief, to make sure only the necessary expenses occur in building the station. But I will not sacrifice something in the construction that will come back in 5 or 10 years and cost us more money to repair or replace at that time. The chief, if necessary, has examples of where this happened in the previous 2 fire stations where we're already replacing parts, and he's available to address that. The operating levy that was passed currently brings in $1.525 million. See attachment 3, that's the proceeds of the levy based on today's dollars. That's actually a decrease. It used to bring in $1.65 million. If any funds are needed beyond the bond issue, there is adequate reserves in the capital project funds to cover any reasonable necessary expenses. Money from the current general operating fund will not be needed to be transferred or used in any circumstance to pay for the construction of fire number 1. That ends my statement.
Very nice, John. I appreciate you giving it some thought over the weekend.
Well, and I would also like to, say that we've got the right person in place here because of your experience with those massive projects like Huntington Center and Fifth Third Field. So I'm confident moving forward that we've got a handle on this. Well, Carol?
John is absolutely right in what he said about the levy. I worked on the levy. We participated in writing the pamphlets and so forth, and we specifically designed that to be both operating and capital. So you can use the money any way you want to forever. I mean, that was very specific in what our intentions were. And my only concern is that, and you, I think, explained it pretty well, I just want to be sure because I have heard things like, the generator was going to be cut and things like that. If that's not the case and the chief is satisfied, I'm satisfied.
Great. Thank you.
That would not be the case. And as I said, I am very conservative. But I'm also wise in, I'm also wise in that I'm not going to cut, as I said in my statement, I just reiterated, I'm not going to cut things from this budget to save a buck, and 5 years from now, the chief comes and says, the door doesn't work, we have to replace it, or whatever it is.
That's great. Did you mark down, John, too, what you and I discussed about the lockers?
Yes,
School lockers, but...
it's already taken care of.
Okay, thanks.
That's already in the specs.
I just still don't know who the subs are going to be because it's not in the contract.
We are contracting with,
Mosier,
we
but I
haven't
don't know
yet.
who the subs are.
There will be a recommendation to contract with Mosier Construction.
Because
Mosier will
Oswald
be
was
the
built
contract.
by Midwest and it was 100,000 more
Well,
on the bid.
they would have to come back to
Because I was here
us.
during the opening of the bids.
They will have to come back to us to get any additional money, and once again, come to you, and I will look at every...
John, I can't thank you enough. I know one of our trustees had quoted to the media that money was coming out of the general fund.
No, I said it was 2.2 million, and that's what the final cost is going to be.
If it was, I'm not going to, I won't say anything about you interrupting me. But anyways, so what was said, and I just want to make sure the media understands that any money's coming out of the capital improvements, and it's not coming out of the general fund.
Any additional?
Additional monies. It's not affecting general fund.
No, it's all our savings.
The levy...
Not affecting the general fund.
Actually, remember...
That we don't have anymore.
As exhibit number 3 shows, the levy's still bringing in for operations.
I said what I needed to say, John. You did a great job with this. Thank you.
The levy goes on in perpetuity.
Forever.
Right.
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 And that's the way we
Right.
set it up.
I did a lot of research on that in the last week to find all this stuff.
It shows,
because
yeah.
a lot of the stuff is 2007, 8, and 9, so...
You just called me up with email.
I passed them out.
Attached it.
I just passed them out.
Yes. All right.
So that brings us to my first resolution, which is Resolution 10-034, award bid for construction of Fire Station Number 1 and authorizing the administrator to execute the documents. I have Mr. Vetter here, and I think a Representative Mosier is here for, if there's any questions, and the chief and I are here also. So at this point, I am recommending that you approve this resolution.
I would like to offer Resolution 13-034, award the bid for construction of Fire Station Number 1 and authorize administrator to execute documents.
Second.
Calling the roll, trustee Haddad.
No.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Genowine?
Yes.
My next item is a public hearing, so we will have a hearing on the street lighting petition, Park Place, Plat 4. If the board so would like to open a hearing to see if anybody wants to speak to it.
I would like to open a public hearing at this time to discuss the street lighting petition for Park Place Plat Number 4. Anyone wishing to speak for or against it? At this time, I would like to close the public hearing.
In that case, then I'd like to offer Resolution 13-035, approval of the street lighting petition for Park Place Plat 4.
I'll offer the resolution.
Second.
That would be Resolution 13-035.
Calling the roll, trustee Haddad?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Genowine?
Yes.
My next resolution, and I think Susan thought she was going to hide up there, but she will present this one. It's approval of amendment to the substance abuse policy. Susan?
Yes.
As part of the Bureau of Workers' Comp's Destination Excellent Program, we did apply and were approved for the drug-free safety program that if we comply with everything, we will receive a 7% discount on our rate, which is quite a substantial discount. Of course, to get that, we have to meet a lot of requirements, and one of those requirements requires us to update our substance abuse policy. The main change, as you will, for the policy is to put a substantial amount of training back into the program. So, for example, we have to train all of our employees with 1 hour of training every year. Our supervisors need to go through that training in addition to 2 hours of supervisory training. So that's the main change in the policy. We also took the opportunity, since we're updating the policy, to clarify the provisions for testing in a post-accident situation. So it's been reviewed by the various unions, and I've talked about it with Chief Bomey on the post-accident, so we're proposing that you adopt the amendments to this policy.
I'll offer Resolution 13-06 to approve amendment to substance abuse policy.
That's
Second.
Resolution 13-036.
That's what I said, didn't I?
No.
Was there a second?
Second.
Calling the roll, trustee Haddad?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Genowine?
Yes.
Thank you.
My next well, it's not a resolution. It's, once again, it's a transfer of a liquor permit. If the board takes no action, that means that it will go through. The permit is currently in, I think we know the business as Chili Jack's in Mayberry and on Centennial there. It's being transferred from Chili Jack's to a DBA BS Cafe. The request is...
Bruce Sable. My cousin Bruce Sable. He's changing from the Chili Jacks to his own name. Yeah.
Right, so it's just, it's, I don't want to say it's a formality, but it's just, the business will still be there, but the
Right.
name is changing in who owns the liquor permit.
I don't have a problem with it.
So as long as we take no action, it's okay.
Move on to the fiscal officer.
Right. And if you could put I guess I'll speak to that. I forgot Tate was not going to be here tonight, so I actually didn't look at him. Let's see.
There's not enough cash in the motor vehicle license tax fund, so we have to increase appropriation in the gasoline tax for the salt.
Actually,
Greg, you want to address that one? And then I'll-
The 202 fund, the revenue is quite small. Actually, we deplete the 202 fund every year for salt. And we always tap into 203 and sometimes 204 to purchase the remaining balance of salt. This is out of the materials account of each one of 202, 203, and 204. So to purchase the remaining, to encumber money for the remaining 600 ton of salt. That's what this is all about. Last year, we didn't have this problem.
No, we didn't.
You want me to address the first paragraph?
No,
The workers' comp, Susan, you can address that.
Actually, the rate is not more than what we anticipated. The way it works is we pay a certain rate, and then throughout the year, we get our rebates. So the end result will be what we expected, but according to the way we need to do our accounting
We pay it up
system,
front and then
we
get the
have
money
to
back.
allocate and budget for the whole item, the whole
Okay.
amount.
I would like to offer Resolution 13-031, increase appropriation from unencumbered balance.
Second?
Calling the roll, trustee Haddad?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Genowine?
Yes.
Not once.
Oh, and this is then to transfer money into the account to pay the actual workers' comp bill.
I'll offer Resolution 13-032.
Second.
Calling the roll, trustee Haddad?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Genowine?
Yes. Do we have anyone signed in for,
Yeah. I just have a quick question from what was said outside.
Penny Levine, 3753 Her Road. Pertaining to the Lucas County Stormwater District, I spoke with Peter Rankator today, and, oh, you don't know? Okay.
The auditor's office.
Yeah, all right. Apparently, we have paid in as total for Sylvania Township to taxation for the stormwater, $795,000
Per
for Sylvania Township
per collection.
per year.
That's
Yes.
almost 2.4 million from Sylvania Township.
Not yet, because they've only
Right.
collected for 1 year. So, only $795,000, we thought it'd be more, about the 800, 850, but things have been fluctuating. Waterville, I guess, theirs went up, and I guess Sylvania's went down a little, because they figured about 800, and then it went to 795. But still, nothing in the books for even 2013 to do any work.
well, we just addressed that, I think, when you were out.
Okay.
Interview or
I know,
whatever.
I met some people that I knew from a long time ago.
Say that we do have a report from them in 11 and 12. We spent, was it 400,000? You remember that report we got from?
That was a total.
Total, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew.
Who's done, what are you talking about, Jim?
The stormwater in projects in Sylvania Township that have been done.
Okay.
That's including the
That they
payoff over
had.
at Cobblestone.
Okay, but that was prior, correct?
11 and 12.
That didn't come out of the stormwater district
No,
that they
it
just collected,
It
did it?
Well, money, that they've collected money, trustee, last year.
Yes.
So it goes into one pot, just sits there.
Correct, but they've only had one collection so far
Yes.
on taxes. Yeah.
And we also discussed that our Public Works Department is putting together a project to clear the 10 Mile Creek, which we will be reimbursed by that same fund.
Right, that, yeah, I had heard. So, that'll come down the pike. And they ran about 50,000 back in '09 with the guys from the roads department clearing out a lot of the blockages, so,
Yes, ma'am, and it shouldn't have cost that much this time because we're getting better at it.
yeah. As long as the equipment holds up. But one thing, which I have heard from quite a few people, especially at this time of the year from fall and then also into the ugly spring part of the year, with everything that got pulled out or sawed down, because apparently the county or somebody chopped a bunch of stuff off of Centennial, and they chop it and then they leave it. The same thing, when the clearing out of the creek took place. So now here you have all of this dead brush and, huge limbs and stuff. Is there any way to recycle that at any time, to get it out of there so it's not just laying? Because it looks awful. I mean, aesthetically, it's horrible, plus it dries out and now it's brittle and it could be a fire hazard.
When we made our initial clean out,
Mm-hmm.
we recycled quite a lot
You know, the part down by Stanley's off of Sylvania Avenue, which isn't
correct.
Sylvester anymore, yeah.
We hired a mobile grinder at $300 an hour.
Mhm.
You know, and in fact, we were giving stuff away.
Yeah, take a look at all that section that got pulled out of there, and there's another section too that, where it's laying. I know which section you're talking about that got ground.
Okay.
Okay, but there's a couple other sections that are nasty. They need some attention. So, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
This time, I would like
Wait a minute,
to,
I'd just like to do an open discussion. We're having next Thursday, the Lucas County Township Association meeting will be here at 7 o'clock on next Thursday, the 14th. So everybody's welcome to attend. It's an open meeting. Okay, that's all I have to say, sorry.
that's okay. Thank you.
We have one more thing.
I just want to say something here. On behalf of the fire department, its members, myself, I would like to thank Mr. Joe Vetter and Mr. John Zeitler for all their help with this project. It's been a long ordeal. I'm happy to move it forward. You don't know how happy I am to move it forward, and I thank the trustees for voting for it. I think we're going to have a really nice station when we're all done.
Thanks, Chief.
Well, you're a big part of it, too. so
Yes.
Pat yourself on the back.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to offer a motion to adjourn at 5:56.
Second.
Second.
Calling the roll, Mr. Haddad?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
505.101.